Hi. I'm going to be doing a bit of a tour through the zoo I've been working on in Planet Zoo for the last couple of months. Zoos are one of my favorite places to go and visit, and, because of certain situations in the world right now, I haven't been able to visit any this summer like I was planning to. So, instead I've been working on designing my own zoo. Now, zoos can be somewhat controversial to some people because they feel that they're taking animals out of the wild, just putting them in a tiny pen and putting them on display for people to enjoy. But what a lot of people don't realize is that zoos are actually very important for conservation. They are helping maintain a genetic diversity through accredited breeding programs so that hopefully one day these endangered animals could be released into the wild. An example of a successful breeding campaign is the black-footed ferret breeding campaign going on at the Toronto Zoo, where they've actually been able to release many of these ferrets back into the wild, where they were once wiped out. So that's the kind of feel I'm trying to get with my zoo here, as a zoo, where the animals are very well taken care of, they have a lot of space, they have all the enrichment they need, and, just trying to have it as good as possible for the animals. So as I mentioned, I've been working on this zoo for the last couple of months, but I'm still not great at this game. I like making the exhibits, but everything else, landscaping and decoration, I'm not very good at, and making buildings. Definitely much better builders out there. But I'm just doing this for fun. The way I have the zoo set up is sort of as, different continents in different areas. To an extent. So for example, in this area, on the left, that's what I'm calling the Rocky Mountain area, where it's all the Canadian and North American wildlife. Then this area transitions to the Arctic, where there's a bunch of Arctic animals. Then a little further upwards, you have where I'm building the South American animals. In the back, there's going to be the African rainforest animals, which will then transition to the savanna at the back of the zoo. This area I saved for the Australian animals because I kind of guessed that that was the next expansion pack going to happen. In the middle here I have some smaller African animals from different African islands like Madagascar. And on the left here we have the animals from Southeast Asia transitioning into the animals in mainland Asia. So I'm hoping to add as many of the species included in Planet Zoo as possible, but there's a lot of animals, and I have a good computer. I just built it this summer, but it's not like top of the line. So I'm gonna see how much further I can expand this zoo without completely destroying my computer. Alright, so now I'm in first person mode and you can kind of see the entrance of my zoo. I've sort of adopted the dodo statue as the mascot for my zoo, just because, the dodo is a good mascot for species that were driven to extinction by human action. So, to be a little bit preachy, this zoo is aiming to prevent species from ending up like the dodo and being wiped out. So then it sort of works in a bit of a roundabout, and I have signs showing where the different areas are. So as I mentioned before, in that direction is the Rockies, and up there is the African Isle exhibits, and then over here we have the Southeast Asia exhibits. So I'm actually going to start with the Rocky Mountain exhibits. Throughout the zoo I also included a lot of green space, a lot of trees between paths. That's kind of a combination because it's an easy way to add nice ambience to your zoo. I really like the forested look, but also I'm very bad at building. So, as you see, I have a lot of stressed animals, and that's actually something I need to work on in this first exhibit coming up. So, the first exhibit I have is kind of a Great Plains exhibit with pronghorns and bison. So once you get up to the fence, you can see, since it's sort of the first exhibit right off the path, a lot of people end up coming here first. So we have the bison and the pronghorns, fair-sized herd of pronghorns, a couple of bison, and you can see baby bison in the back there. And yeah, I tried to give them a wide open area and a bit of a privacy screen with the reeds. And, you know, still need to work on it a bit. I might end up replacing the fence with one-way glass. I don't really personally like the look of that. I really like the look of the brick and steel mesh fence. But, you know, again, this is supposed to be the zoo that's best for animal welfare. So if we make our way through the crowd, we come up to our first small exhibit, which I have the rattlesnake. So you can see they're all nestled in to different pieces of enrichment. You can see one hiding between the rocks. I'll just break the immersion, and you can see him sticking out there. And right next door, we also have the Gila monster exhibit. You can see one underneath there and a couple up on the log. Gila monsters are probably one of my favorite lizards. You know, they look really nice, they're really hardy, they're venomous, you know, they're pretty cool. And I realize that I am most likely pronouncing Gila monster wrong, but I pronounce a lot of things wrong. So, bear with me. So you see, just hanging out on the branch, having fun. I guess if I'm going to be going right into the exhibits, my original plan was to just give a view from the outside of the exhibit looking in, but I'll give you a little bit of a more up close. So here we have one of the female pronghorns. You can see all dirty from wallowing in the mud pit. Animals like to wallow in mud pits to help thermoregulate themselves, so it's a fun fact if you didn't know. Here we have one of the bison. You know, in real life I'm not taller than a bison, but I guess this is either a really small bison or I'm really big. Here we have the baby bison. Very cute. Very loud. Awesome. Moving on to the next exhibit. Oh, I guess I should have a bit of a display about the prairies with the statues of both animals. A little education board on habitat development and how that can affect animals, because that's happening a lot in the prairies. For example, as agriculture is expanding in the prairies, pronghorns are having their migration routes cut off. And this is because even though pronghorns are the second fastest land mammal, they can barely jump, like at all. So even a small fence is able to stop them, and they can attempt to crawl under it, but that often ends up hurting them, especially if it's barbed wire. On the other side of the path, we have a true Rocky Mountain resident of the Dall sheep. You can see you have a pretty big flock of them, with one male and all the females and his offspring. You can see he has gotten in a bit of a fight when his male offspring grow up, and I'm not able to release them to the wild fast enough, so he's a bit scratched up. He's alright. Now, mountain sheep, mountain goats are very good climbers, and I guess that includes climbing up a straight up water pipe. Here we have a kind of back view of the rattlesnakes. You can see another one on the rock over there. And another look at the Gila monsters. See one by the cactus over there. Moving on over here, another small exhibit animal, we have the desert scorpion. And they're a little bit trickier to see, because they're a bit smaller. Thought that was one, but it wasn't. Go over here. Oh, there we go. Another on the underside of the branch. Very cool. Fun fact about these guys is they actually glow under blacklight. I don't know why that would evolve, but it did. Over here we have a little statue area I made, and you can probably guess what next animal on the tour is going to be. It's my pack of Timberwolves. So you can see a couple of them up there, and a little pup right up front, napping in the sun. Now it's funny, most of the zoos that I've been to have either the subspecies of the Mexican gray wolf or the subspecies of the Arctic wolf on display. I don't think I've ever seen regular timber wolf, gray wolf in a zoo before. So, I mean, it's good that the Mexican wolf is in a lot of zoos, because that means they have a lot of established breeding programs, and the Mexican wolf is the most endangered subspecies of gray wolf. So, it's good that they're helping out with the population. Let's see, tried to give them a nice coniferous forest feel to their exhibit. Fan favorite, as you can see, all the guests like looking at the little pup taking a poop. That's gross. Alright, next exhibit, right across, is the grizzly bears. So, for them, I tried to give them, a nice little forest habitat with a lake in the middle, because bears like to swim to cool off. And I gave them a little cabin in the back, kind of trying to tell a story with the exhibit, like a couple of bears moved into an abandoned cabin. Yep, so have a lot of foraging enrichments around for them, because in real life, this sort of enrichment block helps, promote animals to enact their normal, natural behaviors and use their brains to figure out problems instead of just being given food right off the bat. You can see how a keeper coming over to refill this. So having, food that's a little harder to access will, help stimulate the animals and, prevent them from being potentially bored and promoting their natural behaviors. Moving on to the next area, you can see, pointing back to the Rockies and the African Isles, over there is the Amazon Pavilion and South American exhibits, but first we're going to head through the giant forest to the North Pole. So this area I still have a lot to work on, but you can probably see with this Christmas theme, the first animal we're going to come across is the reindeer. So, a lot of people say that there's a difference between reindeer and caribou, but really it's a tomato-tomato situation. They're both names refer to the same animal. Most of the time, reindeer is more often used in Europe and Asia, and more often refers to the domesticated form of the animal, whereas caribou is more classically used in North America. So for these guys, I gave them a little sparse forest exhibit, lots of reindeer lichen, one of caribou's favorite snacks, and nice little, want to call it a barn, a stable, but sort of just to play off of that Christmas theme, and also giving them a Christmas tree in the middle of their exhibit. So, of course, it being the Arctic, you can't get away from it. You have to have a signboard talking about global warming. If you're a climate denier, please leave the video and never return. It's 2020, you gotta accept the fact that the climate is changing. And what better mascot for climate change than the polar bear? Now, in this game, polar bears are very hard to make an exhibit for because they demand such a large area. It takes up almost a quarter of my zoo. But you can see I gave them sort of a underwater viewing area. I didn't make it too deep because in this game the animals don't really dive, so there wouldn't be a point to it. But gave them a large area to swim around, polar bears being a marine species. And then, around these snowy walls, we have the above ground viewing area. a lot of coolers to keep the snow for the displays, and you can see some of the guests don't like that. But it's for the bears. So you can see all the way back there, there's one of the polar bears. I believe right now I have a male and female and their 2 cubs. And I gave them a very open tundra feel to their exhibit. There you can see the 2 cubs chasing after the mom. And then towards the back of the exhibit, I have sort of more of a rock tundra area. You know, a bit of variety to the exhibit, and another more private pool for them to swim in. The problem with the polar bears demanding such a large area is that it does not give guests the best view. But I don't mind. I'd rather the polar bears be comfortable. Polar bears hold a special place in my heart because a couple years ago, while I was doing my undergrad in zoology, I was actually able to travel to the Arctic, and we saw 11 bears, had to run away from 2 of them. So, just having that experience was very special to me. You know, despite 2 instances in the same day being potentially life-threatening. That is a story for another day. And of course, being polar bears, had to add another sign talking about climate change, and the very classic image of a polar bear balanced precariously on a melting iceberg. All made out of ice, with a pool of water, to really drive the message home. Moving on to the next area, I'm going to go straight to the South American exhibits that I've built so far. Again, it's an area under progress. If you know the game, you know that there's also Arctic wolves, and I have an exhibit laid out for them there. I just haven't gotten around to building to it. Alright, so, the next area, the South American exhibits. I don't have too many of them built so far, but the first one I have is a llama exhibit. And I have it as a walkthrough exhibit, so guests can see the animals up close. Now, I don't often like this type of exhibit, but since llamas are a domesticated species, I felt like if I was going to do it with any animal, it'd be the best to do it with the llamas. Yeah, if you didn't know, llamas are entirely domesticated species. The wild species that the llama was domesticated from is called the guanaco, and looks very different from the llama. It's more of a overall beige color with some white and gray on it, and I don't believe its fur is quite as woolly. I believe that was more selectively bred for, but I could be wrong on that. So yeah, being a domestic animal, I thought it'd be nice for people to get up close. And since they are domesticated, you know, they're more comfortable with people being around. And then, up the path a little bit, you can see where I have some exhibits planned out, but haven't got to yet. But over here, we have the Baird's tapir, or the Bard's tapir. I always say Bard, I think it's Baird, I don't know. But, if you didn't know, tapirs are actually, even though they look like a pig, they're in a completely different group of mammals. Pigs are even-toed ungulates, where, if you look at his feet, you can see 3 toes. Tapirs are an odd-toed ungulate, which makes them closer related to horses and rhinos. So, for this exhibit, I gave them a lot of foliage to kind of break sight lines, which isn't great for a guest viewing, but it's great for an animal that likes its privacy, like the Baird's tapir. Tapirs are aquatic, so I gave them a nice little pool for them to splash around in. Some reeds and rock scenery, again to break up that sight line. And a nice big shelter for them to sleep in. Now, I really like tapirs. In real life, I've only ever seen a Malayan tapir, but I was supposed to go to a zoo this summer and see real Baird's tapirs, but of course, we all know why that wouldn't have happened. Alright, over here, we have another one of my favorites, the jaguar. So, I gave them a nice large area for their exhibit, and again, jaguars are one of the few cats that actually like to swim. So I gave them a nice little river, and a bridge across it, you know, again, trying to give a bit of a story with the exhibit. Gave them a large climbing structure for them to climb on, for lack of a better term, because jaguars are also very arboreal. Not quite as arboreal as a leopard, but still pretty good climbers. Let's see, they definitely don't mind swimming, even from a young age. And this actually has to do with the type of prey they go after. They will, I believe, go after tapirs, but their more preferred type of prey are things that are living along the water, like caimans and capybaras. Another fun fact is that pound for pound, jaguars have the strongest bite force of the big cats, and that helps them eat those large armored prey animals like caimans and turtles. So, of course, it being a tropical animal, I have put an information booth talking about deforestation, another one of the largest issues, and sort of build a nice statue, because I had some area, for the jaguar. Again, I'm not great at building, but I like to think I'm at least half decent at landscaping. Over here, we have the capuchin monkeys. So, to me, capuchin monkeys are sort of the classic monkey. You know, when I think of a monkey, I think of capuchin monkeys. But, personally, I'm not a big fan of monkeys overall. Probably, if I had to choose, monkeys are my least favorite type of animal. Something to do with the Uncanny Valley. But, despite them being one of my least favorite, I still wanted to give them a nice exhibit, so gave them lots of trees, lots of shade, a large climbing structure. And, you know, they're very social animals, so made sure that I have them in a large enough exhibit where they can be in their large social group. I don't know, I think it's like their hands. Really don't like... It's like they're very similar to people, but just different enough. Yeah, anyways. Moving along to the back, or I guess the side of this building, Galapagos tortoises. Charles Darwin's favorite. So, I believe I started with 2 adult females and 1 adult male, which should be that guy at the back with the darker shell. And they have very large clutch sizes in this game, which is nice, because if it's like real life, that's a lot of animals to release back to the wild. Now, people, you know, often hear Galapagos tortoise and they think, oh, it's one species. But there's actually a few different species of tortoise on those isles. Everyone knows Darwin, and he had his theory of evolution, and he talked a lot about the finches, and how each island had a different set of finches adapted for different ways to eat and different beak shapes. But a lot of Darwin's work also had to do with these tortoises. Oh, there's a couple of different species on the Galapagos Islands, and all are very, you know, they're similar, they're closely related, but they're different. Where this species has a high domed shell, another species has more of a saddle-shaped shell. So, you know, when you think Darwin, don't just think finches. Think tortoises as well. So again, not great landscaping, so just a nice little green area. And coming around to the front of the building, it's the Amazon Pavilion. I meant to put a sign on the front denoting it as such, but I'll get to that. So, a lot of pavilions that I go to in real life at zoos have a lot of greenery, have a lot of plants and gardens that are local to the environment of that habitat they're kind of coming across. So, I try to capture that feeling here. Where some pavilions I go to have a large portion of the roof glass. It's usually not fully glass, but I like the look. Plus, in this game, if you don't have glass roofs, everything gets kind of dark. Anyways, this first exhibit we have the Antilles, Lesser Antilles iguana. See, one hanging out on the log. Then right beside it, the green iguana. So, often this is the species of iguana that you'll see people have as pets. Do not have a pet iguana. It is probably one of the worst pets you could ever have. They're mostly wild caught, so they're not quite comfortable around humans. They have a strong bite, take a finger off, and they can take your eye out with their tail, which they use as a whip. So, not a good idea. Anyways, over here we have sort of an open air area to view the tortoises at. This just gives another look into the exhibit. Over here have some more exhibit boards kind of dealing with stuff that's happening in the Amazon, such as poaching, pollinator decline because of the loss of the forests and the natural plant species, and the amphibian crisis. So if you didn't know, we're losing amphibians very quickly. Over here, forgot to put a signboard on, but the giant Amazon centipede. So you can kind of see how the front of the centipede and the back of the centipede sort of look the same. And that's evolutionary advantageous because if a predator's coming at it, it wouldn't know which side to bite, and it might not want to take that chance, because at the front of the centipede you can see two large pincers which are venomous and can deliver a nasty bite. On the other side we have boa constrictor. So I think there's only one in this exhibit, but you can see coiled around a tree doing what a boa does, and coils. No, there's two in here. A lot of people don't like snakes, but I like boas and pythons. They sort of have almost like a puppy dog face. So, I know for being a reptile, I think it's cute. Over here we have the yellow anaconda. A big difference between anacondas and boas are that anacondas are more aquatic and do a lot of their hunting right in the water. The more kind of popular and common, quote-unquote common species of anaconda is the green anaconda. So it's nice to see that they added a little bit of variety. Alright, then we have the golden frog, I believe. Can't remember the exact name. But very endangered species of frog from the Amazon. So, see a couple of them around the exhibit. Right beside it, we have, I believe it's Lehmann's poison dart frog. Can't see any right off the bat, but there we go. Hanging on the leaf. So, the reason that poison dart frogs have such bright coloration is sort of, counterintuitive. You would think that in a rainforest, you'd want to be camouflaged so nothing eats you. So you think you would want to be a green color. But these guys actually take the opposite approach. They want to stand out as much as possible. And that's called aposematic signaling. So basically, they're saying, hey, I'm right here. You probably don't want to mess with me. See how confident I am? It's because they're highly poisonous. So, sort of like almost like a threat display, but more like, you don't want to mess with this. It's not worth your time. And then on this side should be the red-eyed tree frogs. But again, don't see any. So, you can see the red-eyed tree frog. They're green. They want to blend in because they are not poisonous. Fun fact about them is they have eyelids that are kind of transparent, kind of have slits in them. So even when they're asleep with their eyes closed, they still have a view. They're still able to react to predators. There's one, up in the trees, up in the foliage. living his best frog life. Over here, you probably guess, it's the back end of the exhibit for the capuchin monkeys. And just giving another look at them and their habitat. So, over here, have more of the arthropods for the Amazon. We have, I believe this is, it's one of the tarantulas. There's like 3 different types in the game, and I don't remember each one. Let's see, have another one. Quite a large exhibit for a small number of them, which can make it hard to see sometimes. So all in all, there's 4 species of spider from the Amazon in this game. Try to at least find one. But it doesn't look like I'm going to have any luck. Then over here, the last of the exhibits for the Amazon Pavilion is the Titan beetle. You can see one right there. And again, just some more trees and plants to kind of give it a greenhouse type feel. And then as you exit the pavilion, just a little food court area. All my food court areas look the same because again, I'm not great at building. Alright, moving on to the next area. Oh, I accidentally popped the guy's balloon. Guess we'll have to go buy another one. So, over here, I need to add a sign to it. It's sort of the newest area I've been working on to fix the grass. But we have the Australia area. As if you know the game, you'll know that the Australian DLC is the most recent DLC to come out. So, from the base game, there were saltwater crocodiles, and a little homage to Steve Irwin. I included them in the Australia region, even though they have a very wide range. So you can see a juvenile one floating in the water with one of its parents in the background. So, as you can see, like the polar bear, I gave it an underwater viewing area, and this was my second attempt at an underwater viewing area, and I think it turned out pretty good. You can see the roots from the mangroves, and the lily pads. I think it looks good. And then, you can see the above ground. See some of the juveniles, both parents. Gave them a nice land area where they can bask, a nice area for them to swim. Over here, we have some of the smaller Australian exhibit animals. I made this part before the DLC, so I didn't include the skink in here. But we have the giant cockroach. See one over here. Very gross. And then over here, snakes. I believe this is the Death Adder. Again, it's hard off the top of my head when all the signs are in gibberish. Yeah, and then other species of snake. I'm actually going to check. It's bugging me that I can't remember. So we have cockroaches, breaking the immersion of the tour. Yeah, so this exhibit, yep, the Death Adder, and that makes this one the Eastern Brown Snake. Alright, back to the tour. So again, just a little greenhouse building, nothing too fancy. Again, I really like the look of brick and glass in this game. Again, just some nice plants from the region, making a nice little greenhouse. So, moving on from the crocodiles, we have this area, which is where I'm putting the DLC Australian animals, and I'm trying to make the landscaping a little bit different. A lot of zoos use rock formations and structures as facades, so I'm gonna try using that for this area. Make it look more like a desert rather than the rest of the zoo that's all forested. So I mentioned it before, but I built that before the DLC, so I needed somewhere to put the skinks. So, try to find them, but of course the blue-tongued skink. I believe I already adopted them. So where are they? Oh, there we go. So, very, unique animal. Almost looks halfway between a lizard and a snake, with its small legs, typical of skinks. Blue tongue as kind of a warning to predators. And another interesting fact about these guys is that they give live birth. Pretty interesting for a reptile. You can see empty exhibit where I'm going to be putting koalas. Big one up in the back is for the dingoes and the kangaroos. And over here are the latest addition to my zoo, actually the cassowaries. You can see they just recently had offspring. If you were asking me what animal I would least want to be stuck in a pen with, it'd be the cassowary. They are aggressive, and they have large claws. Whoops, try to get a view of that. Large claws that they are not afraid to kick you with. One kick from them could be game over. They don't do much attacking with the large casque on their head, which is a fancy name for that helmet that they have. That's thought to be used more for making their way through the dense undergrowth. Very nice looking birds, but very dangerous. Would not want to mess with them. So again, not too much else is going on in this area so far. I'll be building up those exhibits, probably on camera. And we'll make our way to the next area of the zoo. So the next area I think that we're going to come across is the African Isles. Yep. So again, need to fix some of the grass, but kind of move behind the Rocky Mountain exhibits and go through this food court. Again, you can see I'm not very good at building, so it all looks the same. But we come to the African Isle exhibits. The first one we'll come across is everyone's favorite lemur, the ringtail. So again, you can see he gave them a very large climbing area. But out of all the lemurs, ringtail lemurs are actually one of the more terrestrial and don't spend as much time in the trees as other lemurs. But that's not to say that they don't ever climb. See, nice sort of open forest for their habitat, large shelter, and a couple of climbing platforms. Again, guys have to make a point about deforestation. Yes, these people like the view from way back here, but they have the Aldabara giant tortoise, which is the second largest type of tortoise. So again, similar to the Galapagos tortoises, they have very large clutch sizes. This was actually the first exhibit that I built in the zoo, so it's right off from the front. See, sort of a nice open scrub area for them. Lots of room to move around. And then over here, the other type of lemur, we have the red-ruffed lemur. So these guys are a little more arboreal than ringtails, so I gave them a bit more climbing, vertical area, larger trees. See if we can actually find any of them. Yep, all in the back here. It's like most lemurs, they are very endangered, so it's important for conservation efforts to be made. This next exhibit doesn't really fit with the theme of African Isles, but I needed something to fill the area. We have Africa Up Close. like the name. So again, it's a lot of the smaller animal exhibits. I kind of messed up when I was building this and put the screens instead of the small displays. Haven't been able to get rid of them because I can't select them. But anyways, we have the Goliath frog. Have a couple of them in here somewhere. Oh, there we go. Blending in. Largest species of frog. Then over here, we have the giant African land snail. Aptly named. So we have the Goliath frog, the giant African land snail. Fitting that we also have the Goliath beetle. See a couple of them around. Very uniquely colored type of beetle. Also a type of scarab beetle. And then over here, another snake. Again, name escapes me. But very, very nice. And again, kind of cheating on the theme for this area, but I have Nile monitors. And again, I just needed a small animal to fill the space, kind of round out the area. I mentioned before, it's a bad idea to have a pet green iguana. Don't have a pet Nile monitor. Some people do. They grow upwards of like 6 feet long, have a vicious bite, will eat you out of house and home, and require a large area to move around and a large area to swim, because they're one of the more aquatic species of monitors. You can see they almost have a paddle-shaped tail. Really off the beaten path, but fun fact, monitor lizards actually evolved into the group of animals known as mosasaurs during the Cretaceous, and became the dominant sea predators of that time. So, yeah, fun fact. Alright, moving on, already almost done this tour. We're going to move into the Asian exhibits, starting with the Southeast Asia exhibits. Over here is just a sort of staff and food court area. Not too interesting, so we'll move right along into the exhibits. Alright, so moving right along, back past the front of the zoo, you can see the Southeast Asia exhibits. So, right off the bat, we have our troop of orangutans. Orangutans are the most arboreal of the great apes, so we gave them a lot of forest to climb around in, and a large climbing platform. I believe in the wild, orangutans are more solitary than this, but they don't mind having somewhat of a group. So, you can see a lot of babies and one large dominant male. I've slowed down the aging of the animals in the options, so I think that some females have had a second offspring before their first grew up. Oh, stand up, synchronized. Guess something got all their attention over there. Anyways, this is the gharial exhibit, another species of crocodilian, and this was actually my first ever attempt at one of these below water viewing areas. So gharials are sort of unique among crocodilians because they have a long, slender snout, which is very well suited for catching fish. See? A little juvenile one. Very good, because they are very endangered. They are native to India, and they've lost a lot of habitat due to building of hydroelectric dams and pollution. So, you know, an animal may not be the prettiest, but still no less important to conserve. And this over here is the female, and that's the male. They are very sexually dimorphic, with the males being so much larger than the females. And also, I don't know if they have it in the game. Yep, the males also have a large kind of growth on their snout. So if you ever have to determine the difference between a male and female gharial, just look at the snout. She doesn't have that large protuberance. Alright, moving right along. Have the forest scorpion exhibit. See right there. Native to Asia, so had to include in the area. Not much other small exhibit stuff from Asia in the game, so it's kind of off on its own. Anyways, moving to one of my favorite animals, the Bengal tiger. So again, tigers, like the jaguar, are a species of big cat that like to swim. So we have a nice little water area, stone to rest on. My attempt at a small sort of temple. In some reserves, there's abandoned temples which tigers habitate. You can see there's Mom with her 2 cubs. Very cute. Again, one of my favorite animals. Moving over here, we have the Komodo dragon. Related to the Nile monitor, but about twice the size and 3 times as deadly. They're actually the largest lizard species on Earth, but pretty sure everyone knows that by now. And also the whole largest venomous reptile. Yeah, nothing too special with the exhibit. Just a little open area, bit rocky, bit scrubby. Tried to make it as similar to pictures I've seen of Komodo, the island, as possible. Over here, great, more tortoises on the way. I have Peacock Garden, so similar to the llama exhibit, just a nice area for guests to walk through with peacocks. A lot of the zoos have peacocks roaming freely, but that's not really an option in this game, so decided instead just to make a nice little garden area where people can walk, enjoy the plants, enjoy the scenery, and enjoy the peacocks. I guess I should say, like, that's a peacock, that's a peahen. The term is peafowl for the species. It's like a rooster, chicken, hen situation where like chicken's the animal, hen's the female, rooster's the male, peacocks are the male, peahens are the females, peafowl is the species. Again, just a little windy brick path. Lots of room for the peacocks. Need to put more flowers there. Also needed to put all the peahens on contraceptives because we had a population boom and could not keep up with it. So, yep, back over there to the tigers. So moving right along, we have another food court, and one of the favorite things I built so far, the Endangered Species Pavilion. So again, nice little representation with the dodo as the mascot for conservation for the zoo. And inside we have, lots of images of endangered species from around the world, and a lot more of these information boards dealing with, different conservation concerns like the amphibian crisis, pollinator crisis, deforestation, global warming, habitat loss, poaching, habitat separation, and traditional medicine. So, as you can kind of see from this graphic, pangolins are the most trafficked animal in the world, or most trafficked mammal anyways, because some cultures believe that their scales that they have covering their body offers medicinal purposes, but they don't. They're just keratin. They're the exact same thing that your fingernails are made out of. And from that, you can probably guess the exhibit I have in the back is the Chinese pangolin. So, very unique animal in a group of its own. Somewhat a mix between of a pine cone and an anteater. So, gave him a large exhibit, foliage at the back, open in the front. The glass is one way because they are very timid animals, and they get stressed out easily. Even this small crowd would cause them distress. Bit of a rocky, bushy area for them to go. Yeah. There's the tortoises. I meant, like, more tortoises, the notification for them being born. While these have somewhat of a shell, they're not tortoises. They're pangolins. And also partially to blame for why the world is the way that it is. Why is it every time that I do a zoom on an animal, it poops? Anyways, it's not the penguin's fault. People should stop trafficking animals that don't have any medicinal purpose. But I'm not going to get too much more into that. So, that's the Endangered Species Pavilion, and now we're on to the last couple of exhibits that I have. Another one of my favorites, the Greater One-Horned Rhino / Indian Rhino. We're on cue, here he comes. So I gave them a large pit to wallow in, cool off, help them thermoregulate. In the back, you can see the baby. And I believe that one over there is the male. So, nice large exhibit for them. Again, one of my favorites. And then, there's an indoor viewing for them and the Asian elephants that I have. And I call this the Pachyderm House. A lot of people think of pachyderms as elephants, but pachyderm is sort of a term that means thick skin, and it is actually a way that people used to classify animals before they understood, how they're actually related to other animals. So things like tapirs, elephants, hippos, rhinos, they were all grouped into a group called pachyderms. Pachy meaning thick, derm meaning skin, until again people figured out, oh, well, rhinos and tapirs are actually closer related to horses, and elephants are more closely related to manatees and hyraxes. So, again, just more fun facts. I am an endless stream of fun facts. So I based this kind of building off of the buildings you see in zoos, where you can see the animal outside and then see the inside area. And, of course, on the other side is the Asian elephant. I'll get right over to that. Through this winding path. Again, very large, open, forested exhibit with a somewhat large herd of elephants. So over here, more of the females and another baby. And another baby in the back. So you get just a nice area for them to wallow. Very cute. And in the back we have the male. And with that, that is pretty much what I have built so far. So, I was going to say, if there's any interest, I'll continue and keep building and maybe build some of these exhibits on camera, but I'm going to do it anyways. Because I find it interesting. Gives me something to do in my downtime. I like talking about animals. I like building. So it all works out. Yeah. With that, thanks for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time.